Before I begin telling you my story, I guess I should probably explain what I know about the deep web. The deep web is a part of the internet that can only be reached using Tor or something similar. Everything is anonymous and nearly impossible to track, which makes drug dealing and, much worse, a breeze. It's obviously illegal to use or even access the deep web, but that didn't stop me, and oh, I paid for it. I really paid for it. I was sitting on my bed exploring some of the websites the deep web had to offer. Don't get the wrong idea. I wasn't sick in the head like most people on the deep web. I avoided the copious amounts of porn and animal abuse. Actually, by that point, I was an expert at avoiding things of that nature. I mainly browsed the many drug sale sites because I found them oddly intriguing. I never purchased anything. I just got a rush because I was doing something I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing. I know that sounds childish, but it's true. My girlfriend Liz stepped out of the bathroom and ran a towel through her damp hair. I loved it when she didn't have any makeup on, and her natural beauty shone through. We'd been living together for about a year in an apartment in the suburbs, and both of our lives were going relatively well. She was just about done with nursing school, and I'd somehow managed to get a job at a company with great benefits. I was planning on proposing to her on Christmas Day, which, at that point, was exactly 1 month away. She sat down next to me and glanced at the screen. "Are you on that creepy deep web thing again?" I nodded. "You know, if you keep using that thing, you're going to get yourself in trouble sooner or later," she scolded, opening up whatever novel she was reading at the time. "I can't have my boyfriend being some hardened criminal," I chuckled. "Don't worry, babe. I know what I'm doing. Nothing is going to happen to me." She pecked me on the cheek. "Fine, I guess I'll believe you." As I continued exploring, I stumbled upon a site I'd never seen before. It was a drug marketplace called Cannabis Corral. I groaned. What a stupid name. The site was less than intriguing, and I soon found myself exiting the page. A few seconds later, a random chat box appeared at the bottom of my screen. It said, "Aren't you going to purchase something from the Cannabis Corral?" I dealt with these types of people before. Most of the time, if you just told them, "No, not today," they'd leave you alone. So that's exactly what I did. A few seconds later, he replied with, "Why not?" For some reason, I decided to get sassy. I typed, "Because your selection sucks, that's why." It took him a few minutes to reply, but when he did, I laughed out loud. "I have your address, I have your phone number, hell, I even have your credit card number. Buy something from the Cannabis Corral, or else." I rolled my eyes. I'm shaking because I'm so scared. "Do you also have my embarrassing middle school yearbook pictures?" "Screw off, dude." He then said, "Don't say I didn't warn you." A few days later, I had completely forgotten about the incident. I was going about my mundane daily life, doing what needed to be done. The best part of my day was always when the lights were off and my girlfriend and I did what we did best, if you know what I'm saying. We just finished up for the night when I heard a strange noise coming from the window. Liz gulped. "Sweetie, did you hear that?" I wasn't a gun enthusiast, but when I'd moved in with Liz, her father insisted I own at least one pistol to protect her. I didn't even know the name of the model. I ran over to my closet and opened the old shoebox I kept the pistol hidden in. It felt heavy and unnatural in my hands. I'd only ever shot it once at a gun range, and my aim was awful. Still, on the off chance there was an axe murderer outside our apartment, I would do whatever I needed to do to survive. I crawled over to the window and peeked my head outside. Liz had protested renting a room on the first floor, but I had managed to convince her that it was a good idea because it was cheaper. I was regretting it at that moment. A sigh of relief escaped my mouth when I saw that there was no one outside the window. It must have been those teenagers that live upstairs, I said in a reassuring tone. Dang brats. Suddenly, the door of my apartment burst open. In stepped the most terrifying man I'd ever seen. He was clothed in all black and had a cloth mask on that concealed everything but his eyes. In his hand was a large machete. He glanced at me before making a beeline for Liz. If you so much as put your hand on that trigger, I'll slit her throat right here. Liz shook her head as the man tied a thick piece of cloth around her mouth, put her in a headlock, and held the machete close to her neck. Liz's eyes were filled with fear as she tried in vain to scream for help. Then it hit me. The Cannabis Corral. He must have been telling the truth when he said he knew everything about me. What do you want from me? Do you want me to buy some drugs? I asked. I'll do anything you want. Just don't hurt her. Really, she had nothing to do with it. I gave you a warning, and I only give one warning, he replied. But since I'm so gracious, I'll give you a chance to get her back. I took a deep breath. How much money do you want? He gave a sickening laugh. I don't want your money. I want to play a little game. A game? He nodded. A scavenger hunt of sorts. I give you clues to where I've hidden her, and if you can find her within 10 days, she lives. And if you can't, she dies. Simple as that. Oh, and if you even think about contacting the police or telling anyone about this, you'll lose automatically. Keep in mind, I have all your personal information. I can track your every move. Am I understood? I gulped. If I protested or fought him, he'd kill Liz. I had no choice but to agree to his dumb scavenger hunt. Yes, I understand. Good, he said, slowly walking towards the door of the apartment, my precious Liz in his deadly grip. I'll text you the first clue in exactly 1 hour. Until then, don't leave this apartment. And just like that, he walked out of my apartment and took Liz with him. Exactly 30 minutes later, I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. I had been glued to my spot on the floor ever since that man had kidnapped my Liz. Was this really happening? Numbly, I pulled out my phone to find that there was a new text message from an unknown number. Go to Stu's Diner and await further instructions. It should be about an hour away. See Corral. The reality of my situation was beginning to sink in. C. Corral, I guess that's what I'll call him from now on, had both my life and Liz's life in his hands. I stared down at the message for at least 10 minutes before finally replying. Are you sure there's no way I can get Liz back right now? Please, I'll do anything you want. Torture me instead of her. Come on, give me some credit. She's done nothing wrong, so I won't torture her. You, on the other hand, well, you need to learn your lesson the hard way. On the not-so-off chance that you don't win this game, I'll make sure Liz's death is quick and painless. Your death, however, won't be nearly as quick. Now, quit trying to bargain with me and go to the damn diner. It took me a minute to stand up. My heart was beating out of my chest. My legs were shaking, and my head hurt so bad it felt like I was going to burst at any second. Still, I knew I couldn't waste any time. I only had 10 days to get Liz back, and I couldn't let any precious minutes slip away. I grabbed my heavy coat, my pistol, my cell phone, my wallet, and my car keys, and I left my apartment. The chilly November air made me shake even harder than I already was. My only mode of transportation, a used Jeep, didn't offer much in terms of warmth. I remembered Liz telling me that it was a dumb idea to buy a Jeep because we lived in northern Washington, but as usual, I didn't listen to her. God, I'm such an idiot, I thought, putting my key into the ignition. If only I had listened to Liz for once and not gone on the deep web. I typed Stu's Diner into my GPS and let out a loud groan when I saw where it was. C. Corral sure wasn't letting me off easy, that's for sure. Stu's Diner was located near what the locals in my area call the Misery Forest. Rumor had it that cries and moans could be heard in the rustling of the tree branches. Also, I think a few bodies had been found there. I cursed Sea Corral under my breath and took off down the road. Since it was 4 o'clock in the morning, the roads were almost completely empty. My mind flashed back to happier days, like the time Ma and Liz had taken a road trip down to Santa Monica. I remembered the exact moment that I fell in love with her. She was on the beach, laughing and singing Disney songs. Oh, her smile. Her smile. She didn't believe she was beautiful, but she was. She lit up my world. Yeah, I knew if we both managed to live through the kidnapping fiasco, she would dump me in a heartbeat. But oddly enough, I understood why. Who in their own right mind would want to date someone who almost got them killed? There was one thought that I had to repress in order to stay sane. That thought was this: what if Liz dies and you survive? I knew in my heart that if she died because of me, I wouldn't be able to go on living. The Misery Forest had a dirt road that went straight through it. I desperately tried to find another way to Stu's Diner, but with no luck. Upon closer examination, I realized that Stu's Diner was in the center of the forest. My heart dropped. Just what was Sea Corral planning? Was he some sort of mad genius? Or was he just a lunatic? After taking a long, deep breath, I hit the gas pedal and entered the forest. Either I was just imagining things, or all the rumors about the Misery Forest were true. I swear I heard yelling and cries of pain coming from the trees above me. I screamed like a little girl when I heard something land on my lap. It took me a few seconds to process that it was just a dead tree branch. I couldn't help but laugh at myself for being so scared over nothing. I chunked the tree branch out of my Jeep and sped on down the dirt road. Hidden among the ivy and evergreens was a dilapidated little brick building. I turned on my cell phone's flashlight and hopped out of my Jeep. A dead leaf crunched under my foot, and I jumped back a little bit. Pull it together, I told myself. You're a grown man. The front of the building had a small wooden sign that read, Stu's Diner. Even though the door was unlocked, it was still nearly impossible to go inside. My instincts were telling me to get the hell away from that building, but I knew that if I didn't go inside, I had no chance of ever seeing Liz again. Stu's Diner was completely dark. Honestly, I'm not sure why I was expecting the lights to work. I sat down on one of the dusty booths and did a quick Google search of Stu's Diner. As it turns out, it was a popular tourist attraction in the 1960s, but it closed down shortly after an unsolved murder occurred in the bathroom late one night. As you can imagine, that information only freaked me out more. Out of nowhere, all the lights turned on in the tiny diner, and calming yet creepy classical music began to blare through the ancient radio. A man in a black suit emerged from the bathroom. He had a dull expression, like he had done this a million times before. He placed a plate on the table in front of me and took a step backwards. It was 3 shot glasses full of mysterious, clear liquid. I'm sorry, who are you? I asked the man. Are you associated with Sea Corral? He's my boss, the man replied, revealing his startlingly deep voice. At this time, I must ask you to text him to tell him that you wish to begin your first challenge. I wasn't going to question the guy in the suit. He was too scary. Instead, I just did as he said. I wish to begin my first challenge, I typed. Almost instantly, Sea Corral sent a reply. Took you long enough. As I'm sure you already know, there are 3 shot glasses on the table in front of you. 2 of them are filled with a deadly poison, while 1 is full of just plain water. I will be asking you 2 random trivia questions. For each question you get right, I will have my henchman remove one of the poison shots. If you correctly answer both my trivia questions, then congratulations. you win this round, and I'll give you a very valuable clue. If not, well, then let's just hope luck is on your side. I rolled my eyes. You know, if you weren't literally insane, I'd commend you for your creativity. To which the maniac replied, I get that a lot. A few seconds later, he texted me my first question. I was expecting it to have something to do with murder or the deep web, but no, it was a freaking spelling question. Which of the following words is spelled correctly? How is this relevant to anything? I typed furiously. The questions I ask are randomly generated. It helped keep things fresh. Out of nowhere, the man in the suit pulled a gun out of his coat and aimed it at my temple. I held my hands up in surrender. What the hell? I cried. The man in the suit glared at me. Don't Google the answers. You could have just told me that. The gun seems a little unnecessary. Mr. Corral wanted me to use it to scare you. Of course he did. I stared at the ridiculous spelling question for a long time. Back when I was in elementary school, I remember my least favorite teacher telling my mother that my reading and spelling skills needed major improvement. My parents forced me to do spelling tutorials all summer, but it barely helped. What can I say? I'd always been a science and math type of guy. Words just never did it for me. Let's see. Process of elimination. Right. I thought, A and D definitely look wrong, so it's either B or C. I'm going to go with C. I texted him the letter C. You are correct. Here's the next question. What is the capital of West Virginia? West Virginia City? Annapolis? Charleston? Dover? The answer to that question seemed so obvious to me. It had to be A, right? I quickly texted him telling him my answer. Wrong. Ha, I knew I'd get you with that one. The correct answer is C. But hey, look on the bright side. You still have a 50-50 chance of surviving. A loud groan escaped my mouth as I replied, I freaking hate you. The man in the suit grabbed his gun and aimed it at my head again. You have 10 seconds to choose which one you'd like to drink. 10 seconds? I had 10 seconds to make a life or death decision. I didn't even have time to ponder what death might feel like, or call my family and tell them I loved them. C. Corral was a cruel, cruel man. I decided to go with the one on the right, because right is always right? With a shaky hand, I pulled the shot glass to my lips. It certainly didn't smell like anything. I said a quick prayer and poured the liquid into my mouth. I smiled. It was water. I pulled out my phone and texted him. Guess what? I'm still alive. Good. I was hoping you'd last a little bit longer. I have exciting plans for your next 2 challenges. My henchman will give you your first clue. The man in a suit pulled something out of his pocket and placed it in my hand. It was a small brass key and a slip of paper with an address on it. The address was somewhere in Maine, all the way across the freaking country. Go to the location listed and enter the building using the key. There, you will receive further instructions. I stood, mockingly thanked the man who held a gun to my head, and walked out of Stu's diner for what I hoped would be the last time. Once I was safely in my Jeep, I typed the nearest airport into my GPS. Since I'd managed to survive so far, I was confident I could survive whatever crap C. Corral threw at me next. If only I'd known what awaited me in Maine. Liz's point of view. The man with the machete led me to his car, ignoring my desperate attempts to escape. He opened the door to the back seat, removed the cloth from my mouth, and tossed the machete onto the middle seat. Well, that was stupid of him, I thought as he barked at me to get in the car. He does realize I can just pick it up and kill him, right? I did as I was told and sat in the back of the car. Surprisingly, the man didn't restrain my arms or legs as the man circled the car to get to the driver's seat. I took the opportunity to pick up the machete. It was plastic. The man opened up the door and began laughing at me. Pretty cool, huh? He said like I was some sort of old friend of his. I bought it at the Halloween store a few months back. You would not believe how many people it's fooled. I sighed. There goes my escape plan. The man reached to the base of his neck and pulled off the mask. I was expecting some sort of disfigured monster to be under there, but it ended up being the opposite. The guy was really attractive. He had thick brown hair and bright blue eyes. He flashed his perfect white teeth and chuckled. Surprised? Who are you? I asked, not letting my guard down for a single second. He sat down and started the car. Just call me C. He began driving away from the apartment complex towards Seattle. I noticed how he kept glancing back at me every few seconds through the rearview mirror. It was almost as if he was reading my mind or something. Are you going to hurt me? I whimpered. C rolled his eyes. If your boyfriend can't manage to beat the game I've set up for him, then you'll die. But until then, no harm will come to you. Okay, I replied, unsure of what to say next. Why are you so angry at Todd? He did what I despise the most, C replied, not missing a beat. He used his supposed deep web anonymity to be rude. He said things I'm sure he would never have said in real life. Like what? He said the selection in my cannabis store sucked. I buried my face in my hands. Todd could be a real moron sometimes. Is there anything I can do to make it up to you? I asked as nicely as possible. Behave for the next couple of days, he said. I can't tell you how many of the girls I've captured caused a fuss. I even had to lie and say I have a crazy sister who visits once a month. I do this once a month, by the way, to treat myself. People in my apartment building even make terrible jokes about my imaginary sister, and I have to laugh along with them to keep up my image. What exactly is your image? I'm a model, he said, changing lanes so he could get off at the next exit. Not to brag or anything, but I make a lot of money. So then why are you selling drugs? For the thrill of it. He pulled into the parking lot of a swanky condo building and motioned for me to get out of the car. I followed him inside and into the elevator. He clicked the button for the top floor and we began our ascent. So, how many times have you done this game thing? 15. You and Todd are the 16th. Has anyone ever beat you? Nope, he said proudly, and I don't intend for Todd to be the first. The elevator stopped, so I'm going to die then. He began to walk down the hallway. Sounds like you don't have much confidence in your boyfriend. In this situation? Absolutely not. C opened the door to his condo to reveal a breathtaking view of Seattle. I couldn't help but admire the view. Would you like to see your room? He asked. I took a step backwards. I'm not so sure I want to do that. Relax. Like I said, I won't hurt you unless Todd loses. Come on, it's just past the kitchen. The room looked like it was straight out of a magazine. It had a white dresser, a white bed on a platform, and a large, flat-screen TV. My heart dropped when I noticed something very disconcerting on the wall. Pictures of 15 different women, all of them about my age. In all the pictures, they wore a forced smile, and I could tell some of them had been crying. Smile, C said, holding up a camera. I gave him the dirtiest look I could. Smile, now, he roared. I gave the biggest grin I could. C seemed pleased. So, Liz, there's a Titanic rerun coming on in a few minutes, C said. Would you care to watch it with me? Do I have a choice? No. So there I was, on C's couch, avoiding eye contact with him as much as I possibly could. He even had the audacity to beat the dead horse that is. Why didn't Jack just climb onto the door with Rose? There was definitely enough room for both of them. As the credits began to roll, C looked down at his phone, shook his head, and muttered something. Your boyfriend is an idiot. How so? He thought the capital of West Virginia was West Virginia City. Oh. C stretched and let out a loud yawn. Well, Get to bed. We have a busy day tomorrow. I gulped. What will we be doing? Didn't I already tell you, he asked. We're catching a plane to Maine. Why? Oh, I'll be meeting Todd there. I have to be present for him to be able to complete his final challenge, C said, walking towards my bedroom. Now, would you quit asking questions and get over here? I have to lock you up for the night. I entered my temporary bedroom and shuddered when I heard him lock the door behind me. The room had no phone, which meant I couldn't call the cops. Conveniently, the room only had one small window, and since I was on the top floor of a very high building, I doubted anyone below would hear me if I screamed for help. There was a clean pair of polka dot pajamas in the dresser. I quickly changed into them and climbed into the unfamiliar bed. The minutes ticked away as I cried my eyes out. Why was this happening to me? I'd done nothing wrong. Todd, you'd better pull through for me, I thought, burying my face into the pillow. It was going to be a long, long night. So, you don't have any luggage? I groaned with frustration. For the last time, I don't. My plane takes off in 10 minutes, and it's very, very important that I make the flight. So can I go? The security guard raised an eyebrow. Listen, kid, I've worked here longer than you've been alive, and whenever I see someone like you waltz into the airport, I become a little suspicious. I can't tell if that was racist or not. That's not at all what I meant, the security guard snapped. You smell like you haven't showered in a month. You're covered in dirt. There's a dead leaf in your hair, and you're traveling across the country without any luggage. So yeah, I'm a little suspicious. I shrugged. Fair point. Would it help if I said it was for love? I saw a smile peek out from under the security guard's stoic expression. Depends. Give me all the details. I pulled up a picture of Liz on my phone. It was taken the same day we went to the beach. She, Liz, is the love of my life, I said quietly. I knew I would have to make something up, something that sounded believable. She left me for a man who owns a golden corral. That's the saddest story I've ever heard, the security guard muttered sarcastically. How are you supposed to compete with a guy who owns a chain buffet? Right, I replied, and that's why I have to make an emergency flight to Maine to beg for her love. Fine, the security guard said, crossing his arms. Have a nice flight, and good luck with the ladies. I practically ran to the gate that my plane would be taking off at. The woman who accepted my ticket did so half-heartedly and told me my seat was in the very back of the plane. I thanked her and entered the plane. My seat was literally leaning against the side of the bathroom. I was seated at the window, and beside me was a little girl and a concerned-looking mother. I offered them a friendly smile, to which the mother grabbed the child and put her on her lap. Well then, I thought. I slept for the first few hours of the flight, but woke up just in time to catch the ending of Titanic, the plane's in-flight film. This is such a dumb ending, I said to the child beside me. They both could have climbed onto the door. The kid burst into tears. Mommy, the scary man is talking to me. I had to endure the glare of the mother for the rest of the flight. When the plane finally landed, I immediately typed the address that C. Corral had given me into my phone. It was only 10 minutes away from the airport. I had just landed in Maine. I texted C. Corral. I'm ready for my second challenge. Just go to the location I gave you and open the door with the key. He replied mere seconds later. I don't need to explain further than that. I told the taxi driver the address and he began to laugh. That's in a bad part of town, you know that, right? I do now. The taxi driver hadn't been lying. The place C. Corral wanted me to go was an abandoned warehouse covered in graffiti. I paid the taxi driver and sent him on his way. There was a heavy padlock on the door. I placed the mysterious key into it and it unlocked right away. I pushed open the heavy metal door and stepped inside. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It was just an empty room the size of a football field. It took me a minute to find the small note on the floor. It read, "Hello, Todd. Welcome to hell. Your job is to make it to the door on the opposite side of this room without dying. Good luck, C. Corral. I dropped the note and took a step forward. I felt my foot trigger something and screamed as a bag of snakes fell from the ceiling and onto my head. There were about 10 garter snakes in the bag. One of them bit me, but I knew it wasn't poisonous enough to kill me. C. Corral wanted me to suffer longer than that. Suddenly, laughter filled the room. My eyes darted to a small, loud speaker mounted above the entrance. Well, 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 looks like you've discovered my funhouse. The recorded voice of C. Corral said, I hope you enjoy your stay. Out of nowhere, the lights changed to a blood-red color, and the loudspeaker began playing loud, terrified screams. I shuddered. Those screams sound too real to be fake, I thought. I cautiously took another step forward. This time, an arrow shot out from the wall and missed my head by an inch. I instinctively ducked and managed to dodge about 10 more arrows. Why the hell did he put so much effort into this place, I thought, trying to catch my breath. Is this what bored psychopaths do in their free time? I knew I had no choice but to keep moving forward. I decided to jump to the side in an attempt to avoid any more triggers. I failed. This time, it was a bag of spiders. I screamed as they crawled all over my body. It was the most disgusting thing I'd ever felt. Once I was confident that I had gotten them all off of me, I took a deep breath. This is for Liz, I reminded myself. You're halfway to the end of this warehouse. Keep going. My foot landed on the ground in front of me, and I let out a sigh of relief. Nothing. As if on cue, the loudspeaker stopped screaming and returned to C. Corral's voice. Let's shake things up a little, he said. Let's turn the lights off. No, I cried. I was doused in darkness. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. The screaming returned to the loudspeakers. I curled up into the fetal position and began to cry. What had I done to deserve this? Then it hit me. My phone. Not today, C. Corral, I yelled, turning on my phone's flashlight and standing up. Not today. I took a confident step forward and sighed as fake blood was poured all over my body. How did I know it was fake? It tasted like candy apples. It was from the Halloween store. Is that all you got? I yelled as if he could hear me. The next step I took almost ended my life. A pile of sharp knives fell from the ceiling. I managed to jump back in time for them not to hit my head, but since my arm was extended because of my flashlight, a knife made a deep cut on my right wrist. I cried out in pain and watched as my real blood blended with the fake blood that had just been dropped on me. I pulled off my shirt and wrapped it around my wrist. Yeah, I know, not the most sanitary choice, but what else was I supposed to do? I was about to pass out. But then I saw just how close I was to the doorknob. Just a few more steps and I'd complete the challenge. I jumped forward, dodged a large spike falling from the ceiling, and opened the door. I stepped outside and began cheering. I'd won. I pulled out my phone. I made it out alive, I said triumphantly. What's my last challenge? I felt a hand tap my shoulder. I turned around and saw a man with dark hair and blue eyes staring at me. He looked pissed. I knew it had to be C. Corral. Your last challenge, he began, is fighting me. I narrowed my eyes at him. Bring it on. I threw my first punch. My fist landed on his mouth and knocked out his 2 perfect front teeth. He fell backwards and landed on his butt. He went from pissed to furious in about 1 second. I could tell he wasn't expecting me to be so strong. He stood back up and wiped a trickle of blood off his chin. You've really done it now, he whispered coldly. He pulled a huge knife from his coat and aimed it at me. I remembered the bag of knives that had almost fallen on me back in the warehouse. I began sprinting towards the building, desperate to get my hands on something sharp. C. Corral must have had some sort of remote to control the door because it slammed shut a few seconds before I reached it. I jiggled the doorknob, but it was no use. The door was sealed shut. I heard C. Corral's maniacal laughter getting closer and closer. What happened next threw him for a loop. He charged at me with the knife, and if I'm honest, almost managed to stab me in the chest, but I jumped to the side a millisecond before the knife hit me. I wrapped my arm around C. Corral's neck and threw him to the ground. In that moment of weakness, I was able to grab his knife, pin him to the ground, and point the knife at his face. "Tell me where Liz is," I panted. "Tell me, or I'll stab you to death right here." C. Corral's eyes were filled with fear, an emotion I'm sure he'd rarely felt before. Okay, you caught me. Before I tell you where Liz is, I need you to say one more thing." I rolled my eyes. "And what would that be?" He smiled. "Never let your guard down." In one swift motion, C. Corral shifted his arm down to his pant pocket, pulled out a small dagger, and stabbed me in my right eye. I screamed in pain as the dagger from my bloody eye socket. I had him. How could I have been so stupid as to let my guard down? I stared at C. Corral with my one good eye. Not surprisingly, he was still recovering from being thrown into the ground. He was struggling to stand up and deliver the final blow to my chest. I took the opportunity to sprint into a nearby forest and hoped that he was just as disorientated as I was. As soon as I thought I was a safe distance away from him, I fell to my knees and let the tears flow. My right eye was gone, and oh God, it hurt. It hurt. How would I explain this to my friends and family back home? Would they ever look at me the same way ever again? "Pull yourself together, Todd," my mind screamed. "You still have a job to finish." I removed my shirt from my wrist and tied it around my face, creating a makeshift eye patch. I grabbed the most jagged stick I could find and climbed a tree. I knew that C. Corral would come looking for me soon enough, and when he did, I would hop out of the tree and attack him. It was dark out, so I knew he wouldn't see me. "Oh, Todd, come out wherever you are." I heard him call in a sing-song voice. "I have Liz with me, and if you don't leave your little hiding spot within the next 5 minutes, I'll kill her." "Todd," I heard Liz cry, "just do what he says. I know you'll win." "Liz," I blurted out, "are you okay?" "For now, yes," I heard her sweet, calming voice reply. "Now come defeat this son of a bitch once and for all." "I'm hurt, Liz," I replied solemnly. "I'm not sure I can win." "You can. I know you can," she replied. "Think about all the things we'll do once he's out of our lives forever. We'll get married, travel the world, have kids, maybe adopt a dog or two. You can't surrender to him." I heard C. Corral sigh. "Thank you for that truly wonderful speech, Liz. Really, I'm tearing up. Now would you let me and Todd finish our fight?" I climbed down the tree and ran towards the sound of C. Corral's voice. The worst part was that I could barely see a thing. I felt a knife pierce my stomach and I fell to the ground. C. Corral wasted no time. He stabbed me 4 times in my knees and shoulders. I think he wanted to see me suffer before he killed me. "Any last words?" he said, leaning over my body. I heard a loud crack and watched as C. Corral's body crumpled to the ground. Liz was standing where he had been standing just a second ago. In her hands was a large boulder. Her wrist had broken rope around them. She'd killed C. Corral with that rock. She gasped when she saw me and leaned down close to me. "Thank you," she whispered. "Oh God, you're bleeding so badly." My vision was fuzzy. I thought for sure you would hate me after all of this. "What? Of course not," she said, pulling the cell phone out of my blood-stained pocket. "I love you, Todd. I'm going to call 911. Hang in there, please." I don't remember much else from that night. I have a vague recollection of being lifted into a helicopter and being rushed into surgery. The real action happened early the next morning when word of what happened to me had traveled to everyone I'd ever met, and apparently the entire world. "What do you mean all the major news stations want to interview me?" I asked, slowly taking sips of soup. It'd been a week since the fight, and I was still in pretty bad shape. As expected, my right eye had been removed, and I had thick rows of stitches on my stomach, arms, and legs. C. Corral had buried the knife into my skin, that's for sure. My doctors constantly told me how lucky I was to not be paralyzed in one of my limbs. The worst was when Liz's parents came to visit the hospital. They gave me such an intense lecture about how I should have never endangered their daughter's life and how I was the worst boyfriend she ever had. "She could have dated a lawyer, you know that?" her father snapped. "But she picked you for some reason." "Come on, Dad, cut him some slack," Liz pleaded. "He's suffered enough." Apparently, that's what the judge thought too. Yeah, C. Corral died. But since Liz was just defending herself, she would serve no jail time. I thought for sure I was going to the slammer for using the deep web, but no, I was just forbidden from using the internet for 6 months. When I returned home, there was paparazzi waiting at my door, trying to get pictures of me. Liz was annoyed, but I thought being famous was kind of cool. Sadly for me, my fame was short-lived, and me and my story faded into obscurity. It's been a year since the fight, and my life's pretty normal. I wake up, go to work, go home, watch TV, and go to bed. Also, you couldn't pay me to access the deep web ever again. I now entertain myself with BuzzFeed quizzes. Just kidding, I'm a hardcore Redditor. I've told some people on this website a little bit about what's happened to me, but I've finally decided to just tell the whole story. So yeah, every story needs an epilogue, so here's mine. All the revenue from the dumb interviews I did paid for me and Liz's wedding, so I guess that's one good thing that came out of all of this. C. Corral was apparently famous on Instagram, and his fan base still doesn't believe he did what he did. Maybe it's for the best. Liz's dad is kind of starting to warm up to me. Baby steps, you know. Most kids think I'm a pirate. I'm still not sure how I feel about that. Oh, and speaking of kids, guess what? Liz is pregnant with twin girls. I'm gonna be a dad. So yeah, I know stories on this subreddit don't usually have happy endings, but surprise, mine does. I guess the moral of this story is don't go on the deep web. But if you're anything like I was when I was younger, this story has just fueled your curiosity for the deep web. If so, that's fine. Just be careful. I wasn't, and I paid a heavy toll for my actions. Thanks for reading. Stay safe.